bunker church.
All right, I think we have a quorum. It's 8:01. We'll call the meeting of the Police Department Building Committee to order. I see Jim Bell, Paul Foley, Penny Ration, Bill Walbert, Paul Tully. I don't see Michael Chen, Mike Morrow yet. Is that, or Amy? Are you guys out there? Morrow, Chen, or Amy? All right, so we'll see if they, I know, I expect Michael Chen to be calling in a little bit later, and as far as non-voting members, Stuart, welcome. We have representatives from the EMTs, right? We have Mr. Kimes. Thank you. We have our police officers, minus Leon, who I know had a previous engagement. Yes. So, and of course, Joe. Thank you, Joe. So let's call the meeting to order. I guess the first thing, public comments. Joe, are there any public comments?
We have not received any public comments.
Okay. Meeting minutes. Did everyone get a copy of the minutes? Welcome, Amy.
Sorry, I was having trouble logging in. Sorry.
Everyone have a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah, all set.
All right,
I move for the minutes.
all right.
Give me a second.
Yeah, second to approve the minutes. Penny? Perfect. All those in favor? All right, pass unanimously.
Aye.
Next thing, presentation of the schematics. I'll hand the meeting over to Brian. Welcome back, Brian.
Thank you. I'll try to share. I'll hope you can all see the site plan that I put up. The schematic design that we're presenting is all the drawings are dated October 13th, 2022. If you took a quick scan of these drawings, you might think to yourself, nothing's changed. And I think that's actually a good point about where we're at this point. Over the last 2 months, we've been working with the police department, other people in town. Stuart was involved in the last meeting. But what we've been doing is refining the plan, further identifying spaces and how they're going to be utilized, if the adjacencies are correct, if the numbers are correct, if the quantities align with what the future expansion is. And the fact that the plans almost don't look like they've changed, to me, says that we had a strong concept to start with. And all we've done is further refine that concept by internally moving things. We really haven't done any exterior movement to much of the plan other than the Sallyport bays. The rest of the building is still within the square footage that we had proposed, months and months and months ago. And I don't know how much in detail you want me to go into this plan, or just kind of give you a high level. These are the things that might have changed.
I thought it was good, but remember, Brian, and I want to reiterate that you've been working very closely with the police department over the last 6 weeks to really fine tune the schematic. You're absolutely right that not a lot has changed, but the police have provided lots of very helpful input to make sure to fine tune the design as the way they want it. And this is the the first meeting of the building committee, if you will, which is a public meeting where the schematic can be presented in its final form. So on one hand, I'd say high level, but on the other hand, this is the first time the quote unquote the public has seen what we would consider to be a final schematic of the plan.
I, for one, would like to hear the detail, because we weren't sure it was our plan last time. So a good detail and telling us what's changed would be terrific, because this is really our chance as a building committee if we want to, give any input.
Great.
And Brian, I wonder whether you could also speak to, at this juncture going forward, how much leeway is there still in making significant changes? I just give us a sense of sort of a 30,000 foot view of where are we now and how locked down is this versus, over the upcoming 2 months or something?
Well, let me start with that, Stuart. I think that's a good way to segue into what schematic design means. Within our contract and within any architectural sequence of organization, schematic design is just one phase, but it leads to other phases. The next phase that we're looking to enter is called design development phase. And then the one following that is construction document phase. So what does that all mean? Schematic design for us is that the building is organized into its components. And that organization is both in the site and with the floor plans. So how the building's organized in the building spaces and the functions and the adjacencies are important for us to get right in schematic design, because the next phase is called design development. And that's when we give this plan to all of our listed consultants: mechanical engineer, plumbing engineer, electrical engineer, security, site and civil. We're looking to get a finalized survey of the property so we can get real dimensions onto the site plan. So when we give this plan in design development to the consultants will have an opportunity to layer then all of their information onto this plan. And that may include some further tweaking of the plan. For instance, if they need a mechanical chase for certain ductwork, we need to find and accommodate that within the plan. So we might have to further tweak the plan. Further plan development will happen in design development, but we would request that that be minor in scope and not major plan reorganization in scope. So we're not looking to add additional functions, add additional programs, add significant plan revisions, but we are looking to tweak the plan that's been developed. Once design development is completed and we present that, we're asking that really no more changes be made to the plan, because then we're putting construction documents together where we need to detail all of this for bidders and competitive bidding. And in that phase, we put so many layers onto this that it really becomes problematic for us to make any major changes, because it goes through a lot of layers of drawings, and that just is non-productive. So schematic design, heavy involvement in plan development. Design development, you still have involvement in plan development. We will still be layering on information and adjusting. Construction documents is when we're hoping that we won't have any more plan changes, but more just plan development for bidding purposes. So if that gives you an idea where we are in the sequence, the drawings will be harder and harder to understand visually because there's going to be a lot of information placed on them. It's schematic design. It still looks like colors and organizations. We don't have that level of detail yet, other than this is the plan we want to move forward with. So what we'd be looking for from the town at this stage and the building committee is your endorsement that this is the program that meets the needs of the New Canaan Police Department now and into the future, and you want us to further develop this plan into design development. So given that, let me look at the site. And with the site, we have reorganized and maintained a reversed circulation pattern on the site. That seems to be favorable to everybody that is working on this site, including the ambulance facility, that we are changing the entrance and exit locations. We're also adding an additional curb cut onto South Avenue, and we're separating that curb cut from the apartment complex and the South Avenue cottage. We are adding access control to the back lot. We are providing public spaces up along South Avenue, but the public are going to be limited now to only those public spaces and any adjacent parking that's in the area. They will not be allowed to go behind to the rear of the police station or the rear of the ambulance facility without proper credentials to get through a pass gate. So that would now allow whoever's parking in the back to be authorized vehicles, fleet vehicles, and any authorized staff that has credentials to get through the access gates.
And that staff would include the staff of the ambulance corps.
Anybody that you give a credential to, Yep. Anybody that you allow to have a credential could get through that gate. Whether that's ambulance staff, PD staff, whoever, and that's up to you to control who gets those. Typically, fleet vehicles have tags on them, so you don't have to present credential other than drive up to the gate. And those vehicles would automatically have the gate open.
And for the general public, the parking will be as it is today out in the front of the building.
It's just a reversed angle, so it's a reversed entrance and exit location. So we're gonna have to sign that and make sure the public knows what's do not enter and what's entrance only. So we have handicap parking, accessible parking also arranged across for the front.
So Brian, if there's like a meeting, because we're gonna have some beautiful meeting rooms
Mhm.
in the evening.
Mhm.
And there's not gonna be enough visitors parking for that. Where do you see the people who are attending those meetings parking?
Well, we have discussed that, and there has been an arrangement, whether it's informal arrangement with the church across the street, that they do have a lot of approximately 75 spaces that at those times of day and night is not utilized and not highly utilized. We have talked about the police department having more conversations with the church about, is that something that we should the town should formally endorse or get more of an understanding for when that's available. There's also some spots at the apartment complex that at nighttime, there's a potential to discuss whether those spaces may be utilized. But it's really the way that the police department is functioning currently. They don't want people in the rear. They've had meetings there. They've had people park off-site adjacent properties and then make their way to the police department.
So Brian, you're saying currently the police department, people don't use this space, to the side and back for meetings? I mean, it just seems like I can see certainly in prime time during the day, you might want to keep that, but it seems like for the occasional meeting, is it a security thing? I mean, I see Penny's point. It is just, if we're going to have all this beautiful usable space and make this a police department, but as a community asset for emergency services and stuff, we should be able to use the space to park.
Amy, currently, and John can verify this, but currently, all the spaces behind the building currently are used for shift parking and or police vehicles themselves.
Okay.
There's essentially no public parking behind the building currently, though.
So we're
it's
not
open.
losing anything with
So I
this.
don't think, yeah, I don't think so. John, maybe you want to chime in there.
No, we currently don't encourage, right now, we don't have any access control, but it'll be nice to have it. But that area directly behind the police department is used for staff vehicles, EMS vehicles, and patrol vehicles. And there is the lower lot behind the PD that Brian didn't discuss that we could utilize by the cottage back there that will accommodate a large number of cars too for meetings in the evening. So that will be probably less populated during the evening. So we can utilize, much like we do now, that parking lot if we do have a big meeting. And the mission school and so on are not in session at night, so those places. Correct. So that whole parking lot, will be available, much as it is now. There is.
So in the site plan, do we have, I was looking at that lower parking lot too, thinking we could use it. In the site plan, is there good access for pedestrians walking from that up to the police building?
Yes, a stairway.
Yeah, we have pedestrian access through a stairway that brings you up into the lower lot. And then you have paved access to the front door. That would be the only door that would have public access. It's the front door.
Right, so I would just say, if we were gonna routinely use that, Brian, just to look at that and see if you'd want to make any changes, knowing that you would be used a lot over the years.
This essentially is not much of a change from what we have right now.
There is.
Hey, John?
There's
virtually no change.
Yeah, the only difference is there's a gate, and let's face it, if you were having an evening meeting of, pick an example, the 13th, that's gonna meet in the police building. There's no reason why, between, if it's a 7 o'clock meeting, that between 6:45 and 7:10, the gate isn't just up for the people to go and park in the back, if need be, or they can access it,
We probably would not do that. We don't want to have the public parking back there. You know, we want staff parking there, and it is an emergency access, so the ambulance will be responding from there, police will be responding from there, so we don't want cars that aren't used to parking in that traffic flow, parking back there where they currently don't do it anyway. We don't necessarily have a problem.
but to access these parking lots.
Right, that goes through the top there. You can't,
That's the back parking lot on the left side, going down past the.
Pull out the parking.
There's plenty of parking spaces down there and the stairway back up, so that's the way it is today.
Yeah, that's not changed.
I just have a quick thought, given that when the EMS has classes, they're gonna get 15, 20 people, right? And they're either gonna be meeting the EMS headquarters, or they may be meeting in a new meeting room, I guess, in the police building, right? But is it possible we can put a second set of staircases at the south end of the parking lot, so that if they're parking there, they don't have to go, all the way around, or is that gonna be something that's not feasible?
That may be an impound area, that probably isn't a great idea.
Down at the south end of the parking lot?
Yes.
Brian, could we put another staircase down by that?
Why don't you just put the staircase down in the middle?
Or in the
Well, I know that the overall parking count for the police department has been a concern from really the beginning. We've actually, in this plan, we've lost 5 spaces for the police department parking, and that we've maintained 9 for the public. I think the other staircase is going to continue to erode the parking count. So it's.
You lose the parking spot, one of the diagonal parking spots, you have to put another staircase in.
I assume those slanted parking spots, the police vehicle would back into those,
Yeah,
right, so you can zip right out. And I assume also that the rigs, you anticipate, Brian, the rigs are gonna leave through the eastern gate, I guess I would call it, that faces north.
No, the gate that goes into the apartment complex would be emergency use only. I think the normal egress would be here to
Yeah.
South Avenue. So EMS would circulate around the building. They would circulate up this drive area, and then they would face South Avenue for egress. We always want to provide an emergency egress if something happened to this gate. So I saw this as being a secondary egress. All of these egress locations are free egress, so you don't need a credential for when you're approaching these gates. If you're already in the lot and you approach these gates, there's a sensor that the gate will open automatically. So a primary egress would be this one at South Avenue. A secondary egress point would bring it into the parking lot of the apartments. But I don't see that as being your primary egress point at all.
Okay, and then at that northeast corner of the building where the rigs would have to turn left, right, put your hand up there, right up there at the top. Right there, that's a tight spot on the schematic at least. Are you satisfied there's enough space there that if all those parking lots are full and there's pickup trucks in there or something, there's not gonna be a problem with the rig having to do a 2-point turn or something to make that get through there, since it's gonna be lights and sirens in a hurry?
There's adequate turning radius there for our vehicles. Emergency vehicles, yes.
Based on an ambulance turning radius?
Yes, ambulance turning radius is, because what we're showing here in the back is actually a wide 24 feet. This is actually wide enough for 2 lanes, 2 directions. So this is extra wide in the back. This is normal turning and normal turning lane that you have coming up here. And this is really no different than you have today getting up through here.
Including a fire truck?
Fire truck would have to come through this egress point here.
That's fine.
But there's fire department access, fire egress, and then if it was an apparatus, they would have to come through this gate.
And we would anticipate having all the EMTs get a tag to be able to come in and
course,
address
yeah.
it, and the staff of the
Of course,
EMTs,
yes.
right?
Just like a police officer.
And there's the same number of spaces, I think now, that
Yes,
there's
yeah.
7. right?
Right.
And so the EMT, if they have a class, they can park in the lower parking, okay?
Yes.
Yes.
You know, that lower parking lot today has a lot of vehicles that never move. So when we talk about recapturing spaces, when I figure out, we're moving.
Yeah.
Put it someplace else.
It's supposed to be there from.
I know, but that's, when we do our counts, the reality is you got like 6 spaces that are not used right now because vehicles are like that.
But there's still, at least another 10 or 15, especially at night, maybe 20. Or more. I mean, there's quite a few at night.
We have 10 spaces, we have 10 spaces that are covered. Out of those 10, 6 of them are drive-through spaces. 4 of them are back-in spaces. So these could be for vehicles that don't typically move. These 6 spaces would be for patrol vehicles coming back and then responding back to the road. So these could be drive-in and then drive-through. You still have turning radiuses under the canopy where you can park additional vehicles. We have one bay which is identified for the maintenance vehicle. But you have enough turning spaces within this canopy to get back to the egress point. Another thing that we've added to the site is a 20 by 20 shed. This is going to be for items that need to be stored outside and away from the building proper. This could be dangerous, confiscated, donated back for firearms or ammunition, not firearms, but for ammunition that they need to store away from the building that might have some fire hazard to the building. So we've put a shed you could load and unload from this lane to load and unload from this shed. We talked about maybe search storage could utilize some of that shed area for exterior storage requirements. So the thing that's really changed is the Sallyport High Bay, what we're calling. It's now double deep drive-through for 2 locations, and you'll see that further on the floor plan. The rear parking lot is shown as 22 spaces. Those 22 spaces are from this crosswalk down. So while this is not all strictly PD, we are saying 22 spaces here is added to the police department count. We have a small impound lot that could be fenced with surveillance. For impounded vehicles, it's still leaving some day center parking to the top. It's leaving the apartment parking unchanged. So we still have parking that's available to the police department staff. So if staff are entering the back lot, and if the staff are seeing that these spaces are filled, the staff could then exit through this gate and then come around for supplemental parking at the rear gate, at the rear lot. So we've discussed that with the town, if that scenario is acceptable and they feel that that's acceptable for staff use and overflow parking. There are some vehicles in this rear lot that are stationary, and the police department have discussed, taking some of those and moving them to other off-site locations or just cleaning up the parking that's down there currently. Confining some impound to just an impound lot. They don't see this as being a permanent impound lot, but more of a temporary holding. If they need something to remain on site for their purposes, they can keep it on site, and they can keep it enclosed and with proper security and proper surveillance.
Brian, have we run this by, just in the interest of being good neighbors, by the daycare in South Avenue Cottage?
We have calls in, we've talked to, we have calls in that haven't been returned. We'll reach out again, but we certainly have been in contact with the neighbors. So yes.
Well, that raises the question, when does this go to P and Z if you want final approval on a site plan? Because you don't want to go through 3 more months and then have P and Z say you can't do this.
We will need a survey, and we'll probably need further development on the site to get it to P and Z. They're going to need some calculations for drainage and some more engineering work.
Yeah.
We're a few months away from that, but it is the proper time to bring it to the planner
Yeah.
and make sure there's no showstoppers in there. And we can, that could be done in the chair.
Bill, do we know whether the town has a contract with South Avenue Cottage for a certain specific number of spaces?
So they actually have a lease line that does not include any of the parking lot. Their only parking that's designated to them is the 2 spots that are shown right there at the South Avenue Cottage.
And then same question for the apartments, the senior or the daycare. Do we have any obligation to provide certain number of spaces?
We have lines that, and we could add those to the drawings. There's actual property lines that designate which parking is theirs and which is ours. So basically everything south of the crosswalk to the South Avenue Cottage is PD's. And everything basically right adjacent to, everything basically enclosed by the gates is also the PD's. Everything else is only, we don't have as of right to park.
Okay, so and so that we don't know what the exact count is of parking spaces we're required to give them.
We aren't required. They have what they have on their own property.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a matter of, that's their space that are as shown today.
There's a
It's
lease,
still their space.
there's a lease that addresses parking,
Yeah,
with the schoolhouse apartments.
it addresses this space.
Schoolhouse has a certain number of spaces in there, which are equal, I believe, to the ones that are shown.
We did not change any of their parking.
Yeah, this plan does not alter any of their parking counts at all from what they have currently.
This
Okay.
may not fall under your purview, Brian, but my thinking is that when you have cars that are now gonna come down that entryway into the parking lot next to between the EMT building and the police department, and you've got rigs that are gonna be coming straight out of the garage and then take off, as opposed to stopping and doing a 3-point turn. We're gonna have to put some sort of signaling device or even just a mirror or something there so that the drivers of the rigs don't inadvertently have a collision with someone coming down the entryway. You know what I mean? There's just risk of accidents there if there's not some sort of either a signaling device or mirror or something. So that, unless they'll just stop and look, I guess, but.
We have to have training.
It's not a bad line of sight if you're
Yeah.
doing it that way. Occasionally, we have to do that now. and-
Right.
and
There's
The
no-
line of sight is not terrible and you're gonna be pulling out, you're gonna be having lights on.
Yeah.
You know, we need to, we could add a stop sign and,
Yeah.
for that traffic.
Something, yeah, I'm just thinking.
Or we are, yeah.
Okay,
I think the site plan actually improves all of that because it's not general public going back into that space.
It's not high speed, you're gonna be coming from a closed gate, so you're gonna be just kind of rolling down.
yeah. Do you anticipate having to close that driveway off at some point during the construction process?
Yes, I think this whole lane is gonna have to be reserved for EMS, but they're gonna have to manage this lane for entrance and exit. And we're gonna have to limit public from entering this site. So this is gonna be only EMS entering and exiting from this south side. And the rest of the site's gonna be given over to the contractor.
Right.
Brian, I know we've touched on this, just because it's not on the schematic, we want to be sure to note the generator for the building someplace.
Yes, yes, we're looking to maintain the generator in its current location, but we're looking to possibly lower the height on the generator. But you're right, there's a generator that's gonna maintain its
Okay.
presence on the site.
Is that an appropriate place for it? Given that we're trying to, bring things like that back behind the building
I
for
think by,
safeties?
I think by
Okay.
lowering it, we're gonna improve the safety of it. But I think it's in the right location due to the other utilities that we need in and around it, the electrical service, the switch gear. It's in an appropriate place.
Oh, yeah, for that, but I'm just thinking for access for somebody else that would harm it. It's right out in front of the building.
Yeah, and I would also say, just from an aesthetic perspective, it's,
Right.
you know, you're trying to bring this building back to a visual that's really appealing, and to have a big fat generator sitting there.
It's pretty ugly. Correct.
Thanks, I agree.
That's why I believe lowering it is gonna put it down into a better visual. If we could then screen only the top of it, you're gonna not see this large box.
Things lowering it and improving the visual, which should work pretty well.
We are gonna be excavating out the front of the building. We can excavate out and create a area way to lower that and get it out of visual.
Not to be childish about this, but there's no way you can just rotate it around the corner. I mean, it's like if I was doing a house, I would no way have a big mechanical in the front of a house. If I was doing town hall, I would try to not have a big mechanical. I'm just, if it's an option, I think it's worth considering.
I don't think it'll fit around the corner. We've got to buy it, I think.
I think we understand the visual of it, and we're gonna work to minimize it. To
So Brian, if you lower it, does it create any kind of a risk with water infiltration? Because you'd want it most when we might have a water event.
no, we can still
I
green
guess I
that
would just
area.
say if it is possible to rotate it around the building, no matter how nice you can make it look in the front, I'd like to know how much more it would cost us to do that, or if it's even possible.
Now, the other location would be in this new island. And that, we couldn't lower it at that location. We could just screen it. But lowering it here, we as the grade drops around the corner, we wouldn't have a problem with drainage, to pick up drainage from that. So noted.
No, again, and my concern is with security of it. And that it's just sitting out there in the wide open. That's all.
As far as square footage is, the chart on the lower right is the square footage to what we're at now. The only number that's changed is the 2190 for the utility bays. The earlier plans had that at about 1900. So there's a couple hundred square feet. That's the only change, and I don't see that that's a real budget differential. Couple hundred square feet on a bay. Those bays are not your high dollars per square foot areas. So that's, we've reduced the number of spaces in the carport, but the area of the carport is pretty much the same. So we'll jump into the lower level. And why don't we start at that same Sallyport utility bay arrangement? Because that's where we've gained a couple hundred square feet, but we've actually made these double deep for 2 vehicle depth. The last one we had was 3 bays wide, all of them being single depth. So we could accommodate 3 vehicles or bays of the size of 3 vehicles. Now we can accommodate up to 4 vehicles. And we've labeled these as utility bays, but in essence, they could all be a Sallyport. We have wire mesh that's separating left and right, and we have a security screen at this location that is separating north and south. So it gives the police department flexibility on whether they want to store something in a bay, whether they want to use one as a drive-in back-out bay and then secure it for a forensics hold. They can maintain 2 bays as a Sallyport. And what the police department's benefit is to a double deep Sallyport is not just the fact that you can put 2 vehicles in there at once, but you can put a longer vehicle or you can put an ambulance into that bay now and have the distance to pull the stretcher off the back of the ambulance. A lot of times for transport, it may involve medical transport. So having the capability of bringing a longer vehicle or an ambulance into this, get the stretcher out the back, and then transport is a benefit to the double deep versus a single deep Sallyport.
I think that's a big improvement. That's good.
We have maintained a skylight in the canopy just to bring some natural light because all of this is covered as you drive through and drive out. You can see the distance that we have here is adequate for turning and then getting more vehicles under this carport. If it is inclement weather, snow events, they could be putting more vehicles under here temporarily for that need, but they have the space to utilize as they see fit. They have, they say, the covered parking for 10 spaces adjacent to this structure.
Brian, what are the utility bays for? Just extra stuff?
Well,
I
they
thought
do,
it was
they do have equipment that they might need to store inside. They may have evidence that they may want to secure inside, or they could utilize these for additional Sallyport use.
I mean, isn't the Sallyport we have now far in excess of, the drive-through one is significantly better than what we have now, right? And that would almost be like doubling it, like for 4 cars. It just seems like a lot. I mean,
not just
something like, just like the idea of an ambulance going through, it seems that it wouldn't be something that happens very often.
Utility bays could be used as a Sally port. They're not Sally ports. They're primarily to be used for storage areas and flex space for us. We have a dire need.
Yeah, it's just, it seems like a lot of space.
It's not wasted space.
Well,
There's been a car sitting in our Sallyport for months for evidence, okay, which has tied up our Sallyport. If we have this, that relieves that pressure and allows you to have, cars come in on that left-hand side. So I don't think it's wasted space at all. I think it looks good.
I think that's gonna be heavily utilized space. I think that's worthwhile.
Brian, could you drop it down to the top? So the maintenance vehicle is the space that the emergency generator could go. Put the maintenance vehicle someplace else. You have those spaces 1, 2, 3, 4. That are. If you want to really get the emergency generator out of the way, that would be a good place for it.
What is a maintenance vehicle?
Our maintenance.
A truck that the guy goes around and puts it up.
Oh, I
Yeah. But no problem, it'd be undercover. That's, you don't want.
Well, but we might make it a natural gas generator rather than a diesel generator. They don't have to store fuel in the auto.
I just put a generator at my house and it had to be more than 10 feet away from the property lines, 10 feet away from the house, 10 feet away from walls.
Currently right next to the building, so as far as 10 feet. But it's natural gas, it's not a problem expelling it. It could float.
Yeah, all right.
We have 2 more bays that are up here, but these are lower height doors. They're going to utilize 1 bay for bulk evidence and found property. And then the second bay could support the maintenance, but the vehicle would be covered and their storage could be inside. So that's kind of the tweaking that we did in the last couple months, is identified further where is bulk evidence and where is found property. I mean, we knew we had to satisfy it. Now we had to lock it down and say, how are we going to satisfy it? A lot of discussion on this floor has been with proper processing of detainees and how they're brought from the Sallyport into prisoner processing. We're still showing the use of booking rooms, breathalyzers. We have moved the fingerprint to this location so we can get proper circulation for processing for this. This is called an AFIS machine. It's really an electronic fingerprint. We're still maintaining 5 detention cells, all properly sized with suicide prevention measures. We have an interview space within prisoner processing. More discussion has been on the patrol side with adding a patrol equipment space at the bottom of the stairs. So this patrol equipment would be for anybody coming on or off shift. We've added an entry exit door into the carport canopy from this patrol equipment. So on this floor, officers could be picking up, dropping off either body cams, firearms, patrol equipment for shift change, This could all happen on this floor and an easy exit and easy access. So this would be a circulation pattern that would be established for the patrol to be coming into this space and then exiting and entering to get to vehicles that are at the carport. So I think it greatly improves the whole experience of what they need, where they need it, and then being efficient and getting back to the street. We have reduced the mail lockers to 42. We feel that 42 is a number that gives you adequate growth in the mail. So we've been able to reduce the numbers from earlier and then add some space to the patrol equipment. But we can further define with the department what exactly they need to store and how they're storing it. But the 42 number seems to be adequate for the mail side with 3 showers and wet areas. We've added a bottle filler within the space. And we've done the same thing with a bottle filler inside the female locker room. So it's convenience for drinking water. On the female side, 16 is the number that we're providing currently. And that appears to be adequate for the foreseeable future. But we did talk about what happens if 16 is not the right number. And we've shown future expansion of 8 that can take place into a storage area, which is currently going to be built out as archive storage into this L-shaped configuration. But all of facilities will be there to take a wall down, put a wall up, and then expand further the female locker room.
So on that, Brian,
Yes.
so we were showing 24 before, and if you do that 30 by 30, which is out there, I don't know how much our department wants to do it. How does the math work? And there's only 1 shower.
Yes.
So even if you expand it out to 24, don't you need more than 1 shower?
Well, the plumbing code doesn't say how many you need for per, but we're showing 1 per 15 seems to be the adequate number for showers. That kind of relates to what we're doing over here with.
Right, but if you expand to
for-
24, and if you think that eventually it might be a 50-50 force, wouldn't you need 2 showers? Or even if, just seems to me that's not quite enough for current, for potential future space. And changing the shower would be hard.
It would be difficult.
I mean, you do, I mean, depending on whether you had any room upstairs, could the PBA union office move upstairs someplace in that event? Where you,
Yes.
Yes.
Can't we just you could add another shower and then just go extend it. If you think you only need 16, you could add another shower now. And
Or
just a little bit more of that, move that wall further down.
Or another shower could be part of the expansion. I mean,
But is the plumbing there?
we could provide it.
I don't know, it just doesn't, this has been one of I just think we don't know where police forces are gonna go. You hear about how female policing is really helpful. I just think we'd look really dumb if we weren't well prepared. How many female police officers do we have now?
How many female police officers? 7? 6. We have 6 now. We put in, what is this, 14?
We put in 16,
We're 6 now.
I'm sorry, how many do we have now? I didn't hear.
We're 6 now. We're looking at 6. We built it out for 16, and any building construction project would say 1 shower per 15 people.
Suggestion that we solve this, put the plumbing in the build out area for 1 more shower. Just plug it,
Pre-plumb it.
and not use it.
Yeah.
Easy to put the plumbing in now, hard to do it later.
Remember, all gray walls can be moved. Black walls, can't on the schematic. If in 20 years we have more than 16 female police officers, certainly the archive storage wall can be moved. There are other ways that they can do it to expand the ladies.
just plumb out the PBA union office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it can be done.
Hey,
So
Brian,
it's, so I guess it's one for, but for 15, but I mean, don't you ever have like a need to have like two people do it at once because they're so, or take a shower at once because it's so busy or there's an emergency? I mean, just,
No, those are spread over 3 shifts too, so it's
Yeah,
not
sure.
all at the same time.
Sure. Are those showers, is is that an ADA shower? Is that why it's so enormous? The one,
It is, Amy. We need to provide for accessibility into the showers.
so we have to have accessibility, ADA accessibility for police officers who probably can't do their job if they're not mobile. Is that how it works?
Yeah, if it's a light duty, there's still a patrol officer. If it's a light duty, it is a kind of a quirk in the code, but the plumbing inspectors and the plumbing, the town, the building code is going to require us to do this, and it's kind of an anomaly with every department that we do.
Sure, sure.
But it is a code requirement for ADA accessibility.
Okay,
Not for every shower, just for one, right?
right.
The
Yes,
second shower
yes.
wouldn't need to be as big as the first.
Correct, correct. The first one needs to be accessible.
Yeah, I hear what Penny's saying. I'm a little, I think plumbing, having it there in case it expands is important, but in terms of like the how many showers, I just think it's 3 shifts, right? It's not, you're gonna have 16 people there at one shift. I think of it kind of like the Y. The Y doesn't have that many showers and it has a lot of locker rooms, so it's, we should plumb for it, but I'm not hugely concerned about backing it up because it is the number of people over 3 shifts. I mean, but I grew up in a big family, so we're quick, so.
Yeah, we can't afford to heat the hot water anyway, so there you go.
I'm just gonna keep my hat on like I did with Saks and say, yeah, I would love a 3-car garage, but I can get by with a 2-car garage. So I think from it's nice to have everything, but sometimes we do have to keep it in context of, nice to have versus must have, which is why I asked about the utility bays. It's just, if you have space, it gets full, and whether you need to fill it or not is another thing. Now, this may not apply to utility bays, but I think we should keep that in mind that, we want to make a great police department. We want to make sure people have what they need, but we do have to be cognizant of, not getting too bougie in this.
Well, I think we've been specific in certain areas too, like archive storage. We have worked with the department and they have addressed how many filing inches they need for certain storage requirements. And this archive storage area has been calculated with that. We have more than enough just to know that we've satisfied current and future. Even if we do expand this locker room, the archive storage is going to be adequate in storage requirements. So we're not going to be overly compromising one area to support the expansion. But at 6 going to 16, this is going to be a 20 to 30 year plan. I can almost say with some confidence that you're not going to expand that many in that sex in that amount of time. It's going to take a long time.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can look in the future quite as absolutely as you, but it's not going to happen tomorrow, but
No.
it's going faster.
I'm sorry, so what's the size of our current force? I should know.
47.
Tom, you had a question about the,
Just a quick question on the maintenance vehicle and the storage bay. Is the anticipation of usage that the maintenance vehicle would be accessing things in the storage bay when it goes out at the cones or whatever? Is that what's gonna be in there?
Yes.
So why wouldn't you put a doorway between storage bay 1 and the garage? So that they wouldn't have to go out in the street and open the doors up there, because my worry is if they put the truck out there or something and they're partially blocking the egress, that the rigs are along. Is there, I was gonna say, put a door right there with a hand. Can you do that? There is one. It's not on the schematic, that's why I'm asking. And it makes sense to have one there So you could just load the truck up while it's sitting without having to go outside and go around. Or having the truck block the.
Can we do that, Brian?
Yeah, good point. I think, as I said, I think there is one in the current construction.
There is one on the side of the trail. That's a good suggestion.
Main floor. With the main floor, you might look at this and say nothing's changed. Again, that's probably a good reaction because it does really function well. The public space is still identified in the yellow on the left side. Training classroom.
Hey,
is-
Brian, before we move on, just on the physical training room, what's this ceiling height projected to be there? Are we gonna get 12-foot ceilings in there
No, you're gonna get 8-foot ceilings in there.
in a
Eight.
training room?
8-foot ceilings in the physical training room.
Is that adequate?
It is,
Got,
it is. Most of this,
John? Anybody else?
I think it's the best we can get there. I think there's not gonna be, Brian, correct me, I think you're gonna leave the ceiling open.
yes,
So, we think it'll work, and I think that's the best they can do, given the confines of the current building.
it will
Okay.
support hanging bags. It will support things loaded onto that floor ceiling assembly. A lot of the physical training happens now on multi-function stations. It is high enough for that function.
Someone that's 6'2", 6'3", running on a treadmill will be able to do that comfortably.
Yes,
That's a deal, Judge.
we just renovated Cheshire Police Department and they have an 8-foot ceiling. There hasn't been any complaints about ceiling heights at Cheshire PD.
And Brian, when you take, when you expose the ceiling, would you gain another 6-8 inches in spots or no?
But that does give us the 8-foot.
Oh, that gives you the 8-foot.
Yes,
Wow.
there's 8-foot currently there.
So do they have like pipes and stuff running through the top of the ceiling? It's not like clean and flush, is it?
We will be having some ductwork there, but we can design all that for the space to keep it around the perimeters. I can give them plenty of examples of 8-foot police department training facilities that are adequate.
I tell you what, I'd like to see one.
Yep.
Myself. I just don't buy it, but
Yep.
okay.
Well, what's the alternative? We're not gonna dig down. I can't let people in the we spent a couple $100,000 to the training facility goes from 8 foot to 9 foot. I mean, that's a tough thing to look at people in the eye with. Is there really an alternative?
I think 8 is. Well, it's good, you should go look at one, but I think 8 is more than enough.
I don't think it's more than enough, but I think it's.
That's kind of what we're stuck with. right?
We would love 9, we prefer 10, but it's what we are confined to.
Yeah.
It's not great, but it's.
Yeah. What's the
How
height of
many people do you have in a workout facility, the physical training room at any one time? And just the few tours I did, it always seemed to be that it was a low number. So,
Yeah.
you know, why you'd like to have a higher ceiling if the 8 feet works. And I don't think that space is going to get really, really crowded because you don't get a ton of people in there at once, right?
It's
It's
not-
all spread out
it's not
over
the
the 3
number of
shifts.
people, It's not the number of people, it's the ability to do proper exercises
Pull up.
in an environment that, you know, it's not the number of people in there at this time.
What's the height of the locker rooms? 10 feet?
Those are at a lower level.
height of the locker rooms, Brian, just for perspective?
Yeah, those are 9.5 feet.
And that's
Can we-
high enough, Brian, to accommodate proper circulation through the lockers themselves.
Yeah, the lockers have a certain height to them with the bench and then the 7-foot height. So we need space above the locker for proper ventilation out of the top of the locker.
Right.
We do have to bring those ceiling heights higher and we can accommodate the mechanical requirements for the lockers.
Okay. And John, has the dimension, if we go back to the physical training room, is the dimension of that space, how does that compare to the one we currently have?
Well, we're currently in basically the hallway right now.
Right here, they're in the corridor.
Right.
Yes,
It's like a 30%, 40% bigger.
yeah. So it's gonna dramatically improve what we have now.
So you could just walk the female locker rooms with the training facility. Is that high enough? Is it a female locker room?
No, it's not high enough for lockers. This space at 8 feet is not high enough for the requirement for the lockers.
And then that's also a major cost factor, because he's lowering the floor. Right side of that building, all the way down, and keeping the sort of floor level, that both structurally and economically, a big difference. Going over, don't want to do that.
Yeah,
Hey, Jim, it's a little hard to hear you.
this is how we add space to the ceiling for the locker rooms, because we do have a floor elevation change between the upper corridor and the lower corridor. So everything on this lower corridor has an expanded ceiling height, which we need. We need it for the locker rooms to be able to exist in the basement. Is the only way we're going to excavate out this floor area, and we're going to excavate out up to this line so we can get the proper height that we need in the locker rooms. So anything to the left of this being the corridor and all of this space on the left, this is limited to 8-foot ceilings because of the current construction. But we're lowering the floors to allow us higher ceiling heights for the locker rooms.
Doesn't the grade drop too from the front to the back anyway?
We're getting rid of that. That's the
Yeah.
scary part. It's not.
No, not anymore. It's a major, both structural and cost. The way it's set up is clearly the most effective way, lowering the blue areas, the light blue areas, and keeping everything in the beige and darker areas, the peaky area, keeping that at the current floor level. Both is better structurally and economically.
So, Brian, what height is the archive storage and the future women's locker room space at?
The archive storage is at the upper corridor elevation. This is existing as maintaining the same as the corridor. But the future, if we're excavating out, we can excavate this out now and put a raised floor in here. So it would be at the same elevation currently as the upper corridor.
Wait, so sorry, so you're not excavating the future locker rooms?
No, we
women's
are.
storage?
We
You
would-
are.
We would excavate this, and then we would just put a raised access floor in that section.
So why don't we excavate the archive storage as well and just get, like, as long as we're in there and we're excavating, why are we stopping at that point?
We're stopping because we need to come in at grade from the corridor. We don't want to come into this and then step down into the archive storage. We want this all accessible off the corridor. It is currently, we're going to maintain it that way. And we could save costs in not having to excavate further. We have an existing footing here that we need to maintain. And the footing line is along this bearing wall. So the reason that the way we're maintaining this bearing wall and this footing is holding off the plumbing, so we can only excavate what we need to and not have to underpin the building.
Well, one suggestion, Brian, might address the point, it might be a good thing to do, is go ahead and excavate the whole area, just so then put a raised floor in the whole archive area, including the future locker area. That way, 10, 20 years from now, if something needs to be changed, there's an opportunity.
Jim, I couldn't hear you.
Jim was proposing to excavate everything.
Excavating the whole area down to the same level as the locker room, and then putting a raised floor in. So you have a level access from the hallway for the archive storage. In other words, doing exactly what Brian suggested for the locker room expansion, instead of doing it for the whole archive area.
Okay,
At least
That's what I was wondering.
That way, if you do something later on, but there are many more options available. Just consider that, Ryan.
Yeah, it is an expense. I'm not sure if you need to go to that level of expense, but we can talk about that. We can talk about that and design.
How much would it be the additional excavation? You're not breaching that wall, you're just bringing it down to the same level as the rest of that area.
Yeah, it's going structurally, it's going to be a concern if we need to underpin, because then it becomes
Well,
a bigger.
use the same 2-foot drop area that you use on the locker rooms.
You have to do the whole thing on the other side of the men's locker room, so.
Yeah, right.
Just use the same slope, so there's no underpinning issue.
We can look at that structurally.
Okay, let's take a look at it.
I think that would be a good idea for an alternate. You know, an alternate, because I think you're gonna find it is quite expensive.
Future. Let's look at it. We're not gonna ever do it in the future,
That's it.
I think on this floor, we've maintained the square footage, but we've just changed some room designations. I'll start in the green area at the top. We have evaluated storage capacity for evidence. We've expanded some additional evidence storage to support the high density shelving. And we've shifted the evidence and property clerk to this location. So we've expanded the area of evidence storage and evidence property clerk. To the left of that, there was a bunk room. We've redesignated that bunk room to a professional development room. A secondary use of that room would be a lactation room, which we need to provide a quiet space, windowless space, a space that you could secure the door for the purposes of lactation. So that's a double purpose kind of professional development library. Animal control is still in the current location, but we've taken accreditation and special projects and moved them to this office space.
So Brian, we don't have any bunk room now, and that works for everybody, not having a bunk room?
There is no designated bunk room. There is in emergency spaces that they could utilize for bunks, but they didn't want to designate that as its only use.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of space if you need to bunk down, as long as they have the stuff to bunk with.
Brian,
Go ahead.
I just have a question. So the ACO room is currently the Emergency Management, Emergency Operations Center closet, which we're losing, which in my discussion with Kevin, or correctly with Leon, we were in support of. I just want to voice to this committee that in that room right now is all the cert jackets, but more importantly, about 13 telephones, call it 8 or so computer workstations and all the keyboards and requisite equipment that we use for all of the specific positions for each of the department heads and everyone else when we use the OC. So the only thing I would say is when we get later on into this process, those things would either need to be permanently located in the EOC space or housed in a way such that they are not broken when they're brought in and out, which is what happens right now. We wheel out a cart with all the servers and all the printers and all the Wi-Fi and hook everything up, and we always break 1 or 2 in the process of doing that. And since we're losing that space entirely, it will have to reside permanently in that new emergency operations center location. So I'm bring that to the committee's attention. We're okay with losing the room as long as the stuff that will eventually be moved into that space is done appropriately, so that we're not having to. Basically, we have nowhere else to store it, so we'll have to live.
The storage is built into your emergency operations room and the search storage room, so you're not losing space, you're
Well-
getting it attributed back into the operations room and the search storage room.
Right, so emergency management, we don't have any, CERT has a storage, has 2 areas. CERT has their own closet with the radios, and CERT also shares, obviously, our closet, which is where the ACO is gonna go. We're fine with that, right? This plan works. The concern just for the committee is just to make sure that all that cabinet space in all those areas. Remember, we've got a phone bank, we've got computers and workstations for call it 10 people or so that would need to reside in that. Now, I don't want the purpose is to use it as a training room, because obviously you only stand up the EOC, God hope, only a couple times a year. so it can go away. There are clever ways to have it either in a desk where you pull out the phone and the computer as they're available. But you want to put that into consideration, we're losing that real
When
estate.
it comes to, actually furnish you
Yes,
furnish the thing,
later on,
and those discussions, we're not gonna skip on the cabinetry and storage in that room.
Understood. And the other thing you talked about, Leon, so folks are aware is, ideally, we want to be in a position where, we have a call center, when people call 4100 with general inquiries because it's 13. And actually, this is an improvement for us because we can use that training room to have the call center separate from where the command staff is and keep the noise down in the room, which is a win for us. So when we move to there, we want to make sure we obviously have the wiring necessary and that upstairs, that training room at the top. That's actually a benefit, so.
Yep. So I'm assuming, Russ, you and Brian have already sat and gone through all the requirements of the EOC or no?
No, we've not had an in-depth discussion. All I've seen are these preliminary versions of this rendering, basically saying, here's the space that's available. But we've not had any discussion with the committee or any of its representatives on any of the details of our requirements for emergency operations.
But you have Leon.
I have very briefly with Leon, but again, we didn't go through actual requirements documents or anything like that. Basically, it was just, here's the space we're going to have. So we would encourage it. We would like to have those conversations.
And those conversations will happen. We need to bring our consultants on board to assist in those conversations. But for storage, we're showing storage, base cabinet storage in the front of the EOC. And we're also showing base cabinets and upper cabinets to the side of the EOC. So all of this is for storage within the room. And we've moved the search storage to adjacent to the Emergency Operations Center just for that purpose of any other equipment needing to support the EOC. The search storage, they did have a space that was, they did have a space that was up in the training classroom. It was smaller. It's where this kitchenette's located. And you can see the size of that small room has now been expanded to increase the amount of storage and put it in close proximity to the EOC.
Okay, but Brian, the search storage does not need to be in close proximity to the EOC storage. We have, as I've described to you, I've sent you pictures and I've described to you before, we have two types of storage. One is radios and administrative supplies, which are vital, that a bank of maybe 30 or so radios that need to be plugged in and ready to go at any, whatever. And then the secondary is mostly the rolling carts with various gear on those, a lot of it of which is things like rain jackets and such that need to be deployed in foul weather. But the other concern I have is when we lay out the Emergency Operations Center currently, we lay out 17 desktop locations and 4 help desk locations.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing that you've got 15 locations currently. So this is going to take some additional input, I think, from the EOC to be sure that we've got these spaces appropriately laid out.
Yeah, I think that's all good comments. And I think those are the conversations that we have. It's schematic design. We just want to know that that's a good location for Emergency Operations Center. We can work with the space. We don't want in design development to say, we don't want the space, or we're going to move it to another floor, or we're going to move it to another part of the building. If this is a space that we're showing 15 and we need to get 17 or 18, we need to work on that in that location. And then we can have further comments about how we want electrical in the floor, in the walls, overhead, wireless access points, all that electrical requirements. That's what we are anticipating in design development. So we'll blow up all of these rooms in greater detail to get all the specifics for everybody's needs within the space.
And as Russ pointed out a few minutes ago, this is a much better arrangement than they have now, because now they just have the training room. So now they've got the combination of the training room and the EOC center. So to maybe rethink some of the things.
I think we can work with it, and I think it's actually an improvement. And I think we're excited to have the more in detail conversations about how to leverage it. And also, little things like that, we would definitely want to make sure that that room's secure. That's the next phase. We're very excited to have those conversations.
Yeah, even this little vestibule is important because this little vestibule, while we have a little space with 4 doors off of it, this is very important for security.
Yes.
So we need to even determine level of access and security requirements for each of these doors. So we could have circulation going this way that's access controlled. We can have circulation going this way, which is access controlled. So that's the next level of discussion that we need to have. But having this vestibule with access control is only going to make this space better and not just directly off the lobby.
Right.
Brian, when do you think that would happen? 2 months, 3 months from now? When do you want to start that process?
I would say I would say it's in November,
Next month.
next month.
Yeah.
Make sure.
What's the size of that room, Brian, the EOC room?
Ooh,
If you have it, if not, don't worry about it, I'm just curious.
It's smaller than the room right now, but
I can get you that.
it's smaller than the room right now. We can use it more efficiently, and we're also getting the phone bank out of there, so we can make it work.
The devil will be in the details, because if you have, my thinking is that room is gonna be empty 90% of the time, but when it's full, it's gonna be really full.
Yep.
You're gonna have, 15, 17 people in there, so you're gonna need enhanced HVAC, I would think, among other things, especially, in the summer, to make sure that, that room is gonna accommodate that many people.
But they now have a secondary room to put some of the functions that were crammed into the DOC before. They've got the whole training available too.
Right, but I'm just thinking that room's full of people.
Okay.
We just have to think that
They
through.
can reassess it now that they
Right.
couldn't before.
Right.
I mean, I've been sitting in on the meetings with the architect, Ryan, and the police department. I would say the police department has done an amazing job of making sure that all interested parties are going to get what they need out of this building. And you guys are absolutely right and appropriate to make sure that where the rubber meets the road, which is going to be next month, that all these incremental fine points are dealt with. It's the way the process is supposed to work. So thank you.
and the size of the room is 23 feet square. If I just take the square that you're seeing is 23 feet square. 23 by 23.
Thank you.
So what will be the uses of that room when we don't have an emergency going on?
Yeah, that's a good point, Penny. That room does have use at all times of day and night. And if it's not an EOC, it does support any other training, small training requirements or any other meeting space that the police department need. It would be under their use and control if it's not an EOC.
Right. So it's a plus.
And speaking for the public lobby is about the same size. It's just going to be obviously modernized a little bit.
It will be modernized in new handicapped accessible restrooms, but the dimensions are similar.
Thank you.
And Brian, I'm assuming the dispatch area in red is going to just remain the way it is for the most part. Do you see any changes there?
Yeah, there has been a talk about refreshing some things in that space for finishes and improvements. So we're going to look to do what we need to do to improve where we can make improvements, but the configuration is not really changing.
Okay.
The
So-
roles are changing.
Right. Just putting new clothes on.
Yeah.
Can
Sorry, go ahead, Penny.
I'm sorry, can someone explain to me in case I get asked? Why we need a training classroom and an emergency operations, separate emergency operations center? Because are you gonna have training that's going on during the EOC? I mean, I just,
The EOC can be a general classroom when it's not being used as EOC.
I'm sorry,
It's the question, the EOC is available in the general room classroom when it's not being used as EOC, is my understanding.
right, but why do we need then a separate training classroom? Because you wouldn't necessarily be having training going on while you're having EOC operation going on.
No, but as we just mentioned, Russ just mentioned, when there is an emergency going on, we have a large number of people and a large number of equipment that would spread through those two rooms. So in the EOC operations, you would have perhaps some higher level leadership in the EOC room and your call takers in the training classroom, you know, with the 17 phones and computers and whatnot. So it gives us an expansion much better than we have now, where we're crammed all into the training classroom.
It gives
And
the,
when the emergency operations center is not in use, we use it as a small meeting room or smaller classroom. A lot of times we have, our classroom is double booked, or we can't accommodate particular meetings because the room is being utilized for other things. So it gives us an expansion to have a smaller meeting room when it's not used as an EOC center, to expand our usefulness.
I think John said, well, it's good to have a second room. Right now, the one meeting room is not adequate.
We have
So I'm
17
just thinking,
people.
before we show this to the town bodies for the final, we might want to just label that room and give it a couple of uses. So it doesn't look like it's just a one-off room.
Sure.
It's a good suggestion.
I think that's good for most of the rooms that are multi-purpose, to give it secondary use, because the other room that was in, the other place that was in question was the storage outside of next to the Sally Port.
Yeah.
And then it has, you know, 5 different uses. It would be good to have secondary, third, just so that we don't have to work through these on paper.
Right. Good point.
You're ready to look upstairs?
This is great because my lawn care guy is doing my hedges right outside my window now, so I hope you don't hear too much of it. We've actually switched lieutenants from sergeants on this plan. So the sergeants are at the lower part of the plan. The lieutenants are sharing offices to the top of part of the plan. And we've kind of right-sized the day room and reports and roll call. So let me go upstairs if it is. All right, upstairs, same functions that we had before. Administrative is on the front side of the building, from front to back. We still have video simulation and defensive tactics, but we've flip-flopped the rooms in earlier plans. We had those flip-flopped. We had storage here as archive storage. We've taken the archive storage and we brought it downstairs to the basement level. So this is now a general storage room.
Hey, Brian, can I ask you, is it 100% that we're dedicating an entire room for this video simulation training? And, you know, from the folks in the police department, do we know kind of what the ongoing costs of this is? Because you have to buy the system, you have to buy the software, you have to train somebody. I'm assuming it evolves over time and it has, I don't know what the useful life of these are, but is that 100% in the plan? Because if I look at this, we have a simulated training room, defensive tactics training room, then that very large room on the lower level for training. There's really a lot of training space here for a department of, what do we have, 47? I'm just throwing that out there because, and I guess the video simulation, I understand, like, you know, the advantages of it, but we all know like how software changes all the time. And, you know, is this going to be an ongoing expense that we're going to have to have in the budget every year, every couple of years to upgrade this, et cetera? I just want to throw that out.
Well, I think you already do, right? Don't you bring in a trailer now? There's a person, right? Why don't you explain it?
Yeah, we bring in a trailer that comes in once a year for 3 or 4 days to conduct that training. This is something that we could do in-house much more frequently. And you're right, the software and the technology can change, and there is a possibility that it could be all done with virtual headsets at some point, and we could repurpose the space for different uses and continued training uses for defensive tactics, those sorts of video training, simulation training. So it will always be used as some sort of training. What the technology will look like, we're not certain. That could always change, and that most likely will change over the years, but we will always use it as a training facility, and we do we do need that a lot.
Right, and Andy's point's right, the expenses in the room, the expenses in the software, and
Sure.
that we're gonna have in that room.
Yeah.
Right now.
But on top of like, you know, these, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you like were to buy a whole video simulator, you'd have to train someone to how to operate it. And, you know, it's like, would that mean like somebody, you know, at the police department gets trained for this? And so this is, so it's overtime. And I mean, I worry that this is yet, you know, how technology, what's hot and bells and whistles change, and you spend a lot of money on it, and like 3 years later, it's, you know, replaced by something else. It just, you know, we've seen that so much with technology. But it's not just a technology, it's also, you have to, I'm assuming you have to dedicate some folks at the PD to get trained on this, which would, I guess, pull them away from some of their other work and stuff versus.
We already do that now. I mean, we certainly train our people to be instructors and trainers, and that's not going to change regardless of anything that we build. And you know, the video simulation, that sort of real life, reality-based training is required that we conduct that. It's required that we put our people in positions that we're expecting them to respond to and train to them. You know, and so there's a lot of case law that requires that. So this type of training has been around for decades and is only going to continue to improve and allow us to immerse our officers in reality-based training, which is required. And so we need what that technology will look like. Yes, it will change, but it's not going to go away. And the requirement is only going to get more and more for us.
And having a dedicated space for it means that you can do it when you need to and on your schedule, as opposed to dropping everything for when the trailer is coming through.
And much more frequently.
Yes.
So instead of one time a year, or several hours, we can conduct training monthly for 1 hour.
And let's face it,
training the officers is not onerous from talking to different companies. So
right.
And
And let's
we'll have
face it, I
several
mean,
instructors that are trained, and it's not too arduous.
I hate to look the public in the eye and say that we skipped on police officer training. I mean, it's the most important thing we're doing here. We want safety and valley ports and themselves, and where, you know, bad things can happen, and we want training. You
The
know,
most important thing
because
is
we
to
have
have
a great police department. So, yeah, these are not the areas we're looking to skip, in my opinion.
All right, so we won't duplicate this at the fire range when we put that together, right? We won't be doing it here. And then, because we were talking about having at the training firing range, a very multi-purpose, you can use it for a lot of reasons. So we're gonna do it we're not gonna duplicate it, right?
Correct.
This is
Okay. Just because I know we talked about making a very dynamic range that could do a heck of a lot of stuff. So,
Quick
Tom, did
question,
you have a question?
Brian, in the defensive tactics training room, right below the doors, there's a line there. What's that line denote?
In that line depicts different flooring. The area right inside the door could be a hard surface floor. And so anybody that's waiting or viewing would be on a hard surface floor. From the line down, the flooring is a mat, and also the walls would have mat on them too. So it's designed for mat use, and it's a cushioned mat for defensive tactics training uses. So it's going to be a different floor texture and a floor surface there.
Do you anticipate putting any kind of storage space above that line around the corner from the door? Just because if you're gonna have defensive tactics training, are you gonna have equipment in there? You're gonna
Oh,
so you just put that in after. Yeah.
we'd probably look to do that with furniture instead of built-in.
So Brian, on these two rooms, at one point when we were talking about them, they were set up so that they were flexible. I thought I remembered someone saying that, you know, you could take down the wall between them if you needed to. And I was just wondering if you could talk about that, and also talk about, now we have the, you know, it looks like it's the pistol lockers, you know, inside.
The pistol lockers that you have to secure your firearms before you actually go in for training. So these
Right.
would be for officers' use before they come in. They could secure their firearms before they come in for training.
Right, no, I'm just wondering, like, I mean, is there, it doesn't look like we're ever planning now on using those two rooms together.
No, right now, the defensive tactics training, the size of this space, the reason why we flipped the designation on this space, they currently have mats right now up in this area of the building. So if you're ever up there and you see the mats and the mat on the floor and the mats on the walls, this is what they're currently using for defensive tactics training. So the area in this location is hard surface, and then they come onto a mat area here. So we wanted to kind of duplicate the current dimensions of what they're currently using. So that's why this line in this mat area is similar to existing use now. The hard surface flooring is helpful if you're not on the mat to stand here and view. Video simulation, it's just a room. It has very little on the walls at all, and it was typically would be a separate space, not commingled with the defensive tactics. But everything in here that's gray walls are walls we're providing. Anything that's a black wall is a wall that's currently existing. So within this floor, the kitchen, the bathrooms, those are all existing spaces. This storage room, these are all existing spaces. But anything that's a gray wall is something that we're going in and supplementing on that floor.
And they're not load bearing, and it could be changed if in 5 or 10 years the use change.
Yes. So anything along here, these are all walls that could come down and get reconfigured, including the wall between these two spaces. These are not load bearing.
And it's likely where things would change if unforeseeable changes happened in the future.
I guess lastly, it's the Detective Bureau. This is where most of the revisions have taken place on this floor. We've made sure that we've provided now a more secure confidential area for the youth sergeant, 4 detective workstations and the lieutenant. We've added 4 additional lockers to this space. That's typically how they're operating now, to have lockers for detectives within their space. And then the forensics lab is a combination of some floor-mounted forensics equipment and some counter-mounted forensics equipment. This is for the level of forensics that is done in-house. If it's a major forensics requirement, they would also be off-site for different forensics locations that would support the needs of the department, but they do have the capability of doing some of that forensics locally and doing it off the Detective Bureau. So those are the overall changes or any adjustment that we've made to the plan. We're still showing roof areas for potential for photovoltaic arrays that could be placed on these roof areas. We're seeing this roof area as being mechanically populated to support this floor for mechanical needs and other floors.
So so we're making certain that all these roofs that we're putting on will support solar.
Yes.
Okay. And then I just want to ask, because it looks a little big and I think we might get questions again. Can you talk about the size of the police chief's office? Nothing personal here, Leon. It's just, you know.
He's not here, we can talk all about it all we
All right.
want. This office should be smaller. Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Great. That was the one thing we said, his office got to be smaller than the first selectman's. And I walked off the first selectman's, by the way, 15 by 21, I think, something like that. So what's Leon's square footage?
This will be 14 by 20.
What is it by 20?
This will be 14 by 20.
460. All right, I'll be right back.
If you want to know the exact dimensions, I can get them.
well, I just want to know that every time you read these articles, they talk about how you don't need as much, space for, executives as you used to. And I know that there, you know, confidentiality issues that the chief of police has, but I just wanted to get your opinion. So I have,
Penny, I agree with you in terms of, you know, it's incredible how small people's office spaces are. I think this is just a function of the fact we're using the existing building. Right?
well, that's what,
Right? So it's, you know,
And also, you know, as a practical matter, the conference room is 100 feet away, so if you want to get 2 or 3 people and look at something and having a conference table there, I think that's. I don't think this is an oversized office. I don't think we have a problem defending that. That's not-
15 by 24.
well,
I think Penny is talking about the conference room at the top of the floor plan, aren't you, Penny?
Talk about the chief's office. No, I'm talking about the chief's office.
actually, I was talking about the chief's office, but yeah, I'd like to
You
hear
were,
about the
okay.
conference room up there too.
yeah, I mean, I would tell you, they are way bigger than the offices people have in the city now. I mean, people really, I mean, people are in closets in places.
I think he would want the building to have the small conference with people in his room.
We do
Yeah.
have a need for that.
Yeah.
You need to come up with
I wouldn't see a problem with this, but so.
A small meeting.
It's gonna get into the weeds.
If we were starting a new building, with square footage, that'd be one thing, but the reality is,
The reality is we don't work virtually,
Yeah.
work real life.
And this, as Amy pointed out, this is the space we've got.
right,
So
Yeah.
it's not seeking an extravagance, it's just what's there. And it's a good place for the chief's office.
I mean, the chief's office is there right now, right? We don't have to move walls or anything.
On
We're
a
just
different
gonna,
floor.
oh, it's upstairs now.
It's moving out.
Okay, okay.
and this, I mean, the police have looked at this for 6 weeks. You know, and trying to establish what they think is efficient use of their space, and I know they made lots of compromises on moving off where officers spaces should be and things like that. And again, it's the wall, we're not changing the size of the building, the size of the building is what it is, this is the building that exists. And this is where personnel is gonna be, so you know, in 15 years, if there's gonna be a change, you know, these walls can be moved, but for now, it is what it is, really.
And the reality is these officers are in every day, 5 days or more a week. As opposed to the city, you're coming in 2, 3 or less days a week sometimes. So you don't need that space, but
Yeah, but Paul, they did that before COVID. There's the rooms. I'm just saying, because people will say, hey, you know, I'm executive this and this size of my office. It's just, but the point being is that what we did here is we worked with the existing building for all the reasons we ended up here.
Right.
And because of that, you know, we have a lot of space, you know, so.
The existing building does play a part of this because we do have to make sure we're coming in between windows and we're not really separating off the windows from the spaces.
Oh, right.
So this splits the window and this happens to be 19 by 20. This is an existing dimension and we're using the windows as a dividing line for these offices. So I think it works to the function, but also I want to point out that there's a gray line that runs along the exterior wall. We're furring out all of the exterior walls. We're furring those out for 2 reasons. We can run new electrical through the new partitions. If we're furring those out, we're going to.
What does furring mean? I'm sorry, what does furring mean? Furring
Oh,
it out.
we're providing new wall against the existing wall.
Okay,
So we're gonna insulate that space. We're gonna run electrical in that space. We can run new wiring for technology within that space. So we don't have to then get into the existing walls. So we are gonna be padding those out and adding insulation.
That means those walls will move out 48 inches from where they are now.
Yes, they'll move inboard.
Which makes the rooms just slightly smaller, but makes the building much simpler, the construction much simpler.
Yes.
And we're adding R value to these, and the new windows will have better R value also.
Brian, understanding this top floor was renovated over the, just within the last 15 years, or thereabouts, would we have not already done that furrowing, as you call it?
No, we didn't.
And when, just out of curiosity, any reason why we wouldn't have done it then?
Well, that was a directive to just provide space for town hall. And it was just raw space that we provided. We did provide separation in the corridors and bathrooms and kitchens, but we didn't go to the level of,
That
Yeah,
wasn't
very
renovated,
well.
new, it was just a quick added in space.
It was just an economic thing. They didn't replace the windows, which should have been replaced and so on. So that it was a temporary move.
1 second.
yeah, the windows were not touched, the exterior wall was not.
So just out of curiosity, the two, oh, never mind, I get it now. And can you talk about the kinds of meetings that'll happen in the conference room on this floor as well?
Yes, this administrative conference room is actually given two names. Administrative conference would be one if you have anybody coming to meet with the department or meet with the chief. You can get on the elevator, public could get off on this floor, and then you'd be limited to your circulation only to this area of the corridor. So there'd be access control here, there'd be access control here. So public would have access to restrooms if you're having a meeting. You'd have access to the elevator, you'd have access to the stairs if you need emergency, any egress requirements from this floor. So you can bring outside agencies, or you could bring public up to this space if you want to have a meeting. The other use is the tactical planning, and that works with the Detective Bureau right across the corridor. And this is why we have this door to bring the detectives to come in here. And tactical planning purposes for detectives is planning anything for any activities that the Detective Bureau or any activities that the department want to organize. So what you can do in this room that you cannot do in the downstairs training classroom is you can leave sensitive information on these marker boards or on these tack boards, and you can leave this sensitive information out of sight from public. So say they're planning a raid or they're planning some organized event with outside agencies, being other departments or state police or FBI or anything that you want to bring in an outside agency for. You can do that in private and outside of the public eye if you use this conference room and not the training classroom on the main floor. It could be secured off from the administrative area. So the administrative area could be locked and secured, and the Detective Bureau could still be using this for their need in any tactical planning requirement. And I'm sure the deputy chief could go on more about how that could function well for having a space that's outside the viewing eye of the public and doesn't potentially impede the emergency operations center, which may be utilized.
Yeah, no, you captured it well, Brian.
And can you talk about the attic access? Because I remember that sort of squirrely now. Are we, just from my one tour, and are we making it better? I mean, isn't that to get up to communications equipment or something?
We are going to make it better by trying to relocate that communications equipment down, so you don't have to access the upstairs to get to that. But the ship's ladder is going to maintain your only access to the attic space.
We're gonna move the equipment that's up there to an offsite location, to a better location to service it better.
That was my question. Where I was going to say that the committee should pay careful attention to the public safety radio, all the backbone, all the equipment is up there, as well as the switches, which need to be climate controlled. So as we move forward in this process, where that gets located is something that should get special consideration and concern.
I thought we were just moving into Stewart's house. Isn't that what we're doing?
Also-
Something, I'd like to be part of that discussion. We're paying, that's under our department, so.
And I'd love to be a part of that discussion as well. And Brian, I'm assuming as part of your, when you go into the design development phase and you're beginning to bring in consultants, Northeast Communications, Norcom will be one of those consultants, I'm sure.
Yes, they're not a consultant under our contract, but they're a consultant of the owner, so of the town. So we will include them, Stuart, in our conversations.
Okay.
I apologize. I have to jump off. So I'll call somebody to get filled in if I missed anything, okay?
Amy?
Yeah,
If you don't mind, us taking a vote, I don't know if we had an actual vote of the agenda, but certainly a sense of the building committee that, to approve the schematics going forward. Is that, something you guys are willing to do while you're here?
I'm
Subject
for
to
moving
change-
forward.
subject to changing.
Yes.
Well, subject to all the follow-up, it's gonna be done in design development.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So I think-
Jim, why don't you make that motion?
I move that we, plan to proceed into design development with all the caveats that we've discussed previously.
I'll second that. Yeah, I'll second that. Paul,
All those in favor?
aye.
aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ames.
Bye, guys.
All right, where were we?
Well, any other questions for John? I think everybody pretty much, asked the questions, but
Yeah.
anything else needs to be open?
Anything else on the schematics themselves?
Actually, I've got to run to a 10 o'clock myself. So is there anything else you need from me?
So the one thing that deviates from the space needs assessment is the parking. I know we talked about that ad nauseum. But this plan does assume an off-site solution for overflow parking. And just want everyone to be, completely aware that this plan does not cover all the parking needs.
You say offsite, you're already across the road at the church.
Well, I don't
Into the other parking lots right around.
to another parking lot around, it's all I can say is an off-site solution, because I don't know that the church, although we feel it's a long-term, but I think if we're looking at this project for 50 years, we have to, we're constantly making a decision to have less parking than we thought we needed, because it can be handled off-site.
I think everybody pretty much bought into that. It's the best that we can do on the current site.
Right. And,
I don't disagree with that.
right,
I mean, they gave up some to improve operational facilities with the police with Valley. And,
Right.
and there also is, John, they can move some of the vehicles out and below, that will really help the parking system.
right.
I agree, there just is not a good location that everyone thinks that we in the town has lots of great locations and everyone's welcoming crashed vehicles in their backyard, but it's not, it's a solution that does not.
We need to find, as we've all discussed, we need to find a solution.
Right. And so, I would expect formal discussion between the town and the United Methodist Church, in the foreseeable future, that,
Who's the parking for?
Can we excuse Brian? He has to.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, all right.
Thank you, Ryan.
So the park is really for, and let's talk long term, right? It's basically for special meetings. So it's probably a 5 times a year, pick a number, situation. There's 70-something spots at the Methodist Church. I happen to be a member of the Methodist Church, in full disclosure. And so I told them that that will be approaching them to talk about parking.
Yeah, but I don't know that you say 5 meetings a year, they're in the night, they're in the evening.
Yes,
There's plenty of excess parking in the evening.
We covered that down below, there's plenty of excess
I
parking.
think this would be a problem for P and Z if you say you need additional parking.
I don't think we need it. I think we have enough to accommodate that, but if there were
Yeah.
the one-off situation, I don't think that we would go to the Methodist Church 5 times a year. We don't do that now.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we have, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, we would have a meeting, a large meeting or what.
You're talking about P and Z commission meeting?
Well,
Police commission meeting?
Yeah, occasional.
The police commission meetings can always be scheduled for the town hall meeting.
Yeah, if we just, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if you anticipate big issues, just like other.
Just like it's a good one.
Yeah, I just don't see the need,
Right.
and P and Z is gonna focus on the need.
yep,
For all the reasons we discussed earlier, there's a lot of parking there. I've been parking there for the last 15 years and there's always parking. So I never had to go.
The nursing school doesn't operate at night, they have a certain number of spaces, right?
South Avenue Credit doesn't use any spaces,
And we don't use that overlap well.
Exactly.
We position.
I think
you need to redefine your need.
I think that the 7.5 was, let's say, the upper end of the possible requirement.
You only have 15 people working in the building. I mean, it's,
No, a lot of it had to do with,
But your ship guys are all out on the road, their cars are there, which is seven.
But Kevin, the problem with that hypothesis is that when the shift is there, their civilian cars are parked. But public does not have access to the spaces where police vehicles would normally be parked. So it becomes a confined space and restricted space. I happen to think that, you know, the number of public parking spaces out front is insufficient. However, I think the biggest opportunity we have would be to take the South Avenue parking, which currently is filled with you know, a CERT trailer, an EMS trailer, a sheltering trailer, you know, the Humvee. You've got maybe 7 or 8, 9 spaces that are used near the South Avenue cottage, which if we could find another location in town, they could be moved. But to Joe's point, the challenge is finding another space to move them to.
we ought to make that a to-do item, because they're really working on it, because those vehicles weren't there when we built that space, and people said, oh, we got all these spaces, they started putting junk down there. It's not junk,
But I'm sorry, I would disagree with you. I don't think it's junk. I just think they're infrequently used vehicles and or equipment. It's not junk. I mean, the CERT trailer is not junk. It's full of critical material. So I disagree with you. But nevertheless, the point still is we need to find a good location where we can store them. And it doesn't have to be behind the police department.
Well, at least with the CERT trailer, will that move into the CERT training room with that storage space?
No,
Or
no.
additional?
These are things like generators and, you know, huge tents and things of that nature. It's not stuff that you could bring inside would not typically be brought inside the building.
This will all be part of the move. We're gonna have to move this stuff offsite anyway, so we'll find a better location for it.
Did you have a question?
Tony Galenga, who's an EMT and working with me on the, had a question.
Oh, we got you right about that, which is in the new version is we have a trailer back there, certain as a trailer. Are those floors clean to be staying there? It sounds like that's a topic for discussion.
Probably not. We're gonna find a better location.
Well, that will then free up more time.
And as far as the church, again, if there's no need for a formal, longer term discussion or arrangement, certainly in the short term, when the construction is actually happening, there will probably be some kind of a discussion with the church as far as parking for construction vehicles and things like that.
But it sounds like the EMT space is there along the southern wall of the schematics. They're gonna stay even during construction.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to work there and not have.
Okay, general business, I don't foresee a special meeting going forward or anything like that. Next step, there's a couple things we're going on here, right? So the Brian's gonna be working on the more detailed drawings before we get to construction drawings, and this just to make sure that nothing from a water perspective comes up. We also, as a building committee, are going to be putting out requests for qualifications for our owner's rep going forward, and sort of a again, final reminder for any building committee members or anyone has a recommendation that we should consider for that. Let that go. Joe, do you have any more comments on that, or?
No, so I would like to set the date. I think November 3rd would probably be an appropriate date to give people enough time if we basically put it out to bid on Monday. I mean, I'll rest the request for qualifications out.
So at our next meeting, we could, or we could take a subset of the voting committee to go through it, which is probably better.
Go to the first. And then
I'm sorry, what would be the date for the interviews?
Haven't set the date for the interviews, but the November 3rd would be when we would, what I'm suggesting we get the request for qualifications in.
We haven't put the request for the request out, but assuming that happens on Monday, right? We do the request on Monday, the 17th. We're gonna give them until November 3rd to
Oh,
respond.
to get their answers. Okay, great.
And then we can, like, maybe shorten that to, why don't you make it November 1st or 2nd? Anyway, so we have a week or so to do some vetting before the building committee meeting on.
Do we want to set a day for interviews just because everybody's schedules get really busy? That way we can block it.
We need to do some interviews, we need to do interviews between, say, the 2nd and the 9th.
Right.
The only reason we can't, up the return date by a couple days,
I'd like to give people usually 3 weeks, but if you don't want to, that's fine.
Then we'll do interviews between the 3rd and the 8th and 9th.
Yeah.
You want to set it at, to do it the 9th? Interviews on the 9th?
Sure, fine with me.
I have something at 10 o'clock. I can't move, but I could do it starting at noon.
Or the 8th.
Yeah.
You want to do the 8th? That's an election. day.
Election, that could be
No, that would
crazy,
be
but
good. Okay, how about the 9th,
9th in the PM.
in the afternoon?
That'd be good.
And I think we should, we'll look at the qualifications and invite the two we feel are most qualified for potential interviews, give them 90 minutes each or an hour each. Hour each.
Station by half an hour, so probably would go over.
And that would be an official committee meeting, it's more of a subcommittee, whoever.
Subcommittee, right. All right, anything else business wise? All right, progressing as well as hoped, right? All right, motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, bye.
That's the most important thing.
Thank you all.